Hi, everyone. Just checking out that you can hear me. I wanted to understand the reality between the hype. I should take this in my hands. Between the hype and the, I wanted to understand the reality and the hype for mobile globally in the United States. How much is really selling? I'd like to see some hands of people who've wondered that question. How big is the global mobile research market? Has anyone wrestled with that? A few hands. Are there other people who just know it? Because I've asked different people and am getting lots of different responses. So where are we today? The most conservative data on just mobile subscriptions in the world is World Bank. And then when you compare the World Bank data with Pew on the United States, it's conservative. It doesn't match up with Pew. It's a fewer percentage points. And then the most optimistic is Moby Thinking. It's a great site, but I think their numbers are a little hyperinflated. I think the best data we're getting is from Pew in the United States, and it's done through surveys. But they're also looking at subscriptions, the number of active subscriptions to a mobile device. And that's why we're getting percentages over 100%. You know, in Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, the percentage is 189%, almost 2 mobile subscriptions per person. So looking across what's going on today in various different countries, we see the green line is smartphone, and the blue line is just mobile overall. And then the orange line is mobile broadband, because I really think that the type of research we've been talking about these 2 days, especially the research that General Mills was just talking about, is specifically for a smartphone device, rather than doing it text or SMS messaging. So we see that in emerging markets, those markets are really low on smartphone penetration, very high for Russia, for example, on mobile phone penetration, but not so much for smartphone. So if we look at that emerging market, all the surveys that are going on there now, the CADI are in person, and it's a huge addressable market in terms of revenue. It's $2.5 billion just in South America, Eastern Europe, and Africa. So there's a lot of survey research going on there. And as smartphones increase, we have this opportunity to really do good research that right now is being done, not as much on the phone, but in person. So painful and expensive. But I think this is an interesting fact. In India, mobile internet passed desktop internet usage at the end of 2012. So it's happening. Smartphone is lower. The phones are decreasing in price. If we look at China in a few minutes, we'll see that. Mature markets. Mobile is a singular way. We've heard about this mature market for 2 days. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. But I do want to, this fact is kind of crazy, because it really talks about mobile is a shiny new penny. People in America check their smartphones about 150 times a day. And that is just, and we heard the comment, the stat yesterday about people checking their phones and having sex. I do check my phone 150 times a day. I can definitely, I sleep with my phone. Actually, it's embarrassing, but I do not check it while I have sex. I just want to go on the record for that. But what I think we've heard in the past 2 days is that people use we can use, as researchers, the mobile device to effectively build and strengthen those relationships with our respondents, build loyalty, because the best respondents are loyal and want to give good answers during that survey, and then also to reach people and to reach them in the moment. So now I'm going to go forward, some extrapolation. So I did an extrapolation. The purple is where we're going to be in 2017 for smartphone usage. And you remember the green is the smartphone usage from the 2013 numbers. So this extrapolation was based on a number of factors: current level of income. So does an individual in the country where the smartphone usage needs to increase to reach kind of a tipping point have the available money to purchase that smartphone? That's number one. The second one is, how much would that smartphone be in order to do that first calculation? And right now in China, smartphones are being sold for about $159, the cheapest Androids. And there's prediction that that's going to drop to be about $100 in 2016, 2017. So by doing that extrapolation and building those weights into the numbers, this is what we'll see, the purple line. And the dotted line on top is the 100%. So we're really seeing the United States is going to go over that line. Japan's over that line. Our mature markets are going to be saturated. And that means we can reach all of our respondents by smartphone. Our emerging markets, I'm not sure. Let's look at the next few slides. So the tipping point. We're almost there in terms of US and Europe, in terms of research, but I don't think we're quite there yet. So I did talk to a bunch of people about this. So I talked to Lenny Murphy, and he was saying 5%. And then I heard him secondhand say 500 million out of a market of 38 billion, which I calculated it out. It's 1.7%. So somewhere between, Lenny's answer is between 1.7% and 5%. Tim Macer, who does a survey of 283, I think, organizations globally, his number is about between 3 and 5%, depending if it's an emerging or mature market. So there is definitely mobile going on. It's happening on smartphones predominantly in mature markets, but we're not there yet, but we're almost there. So when I went to this conference a few times ago, it was not as populated. And then last year, there was an excitement that I had never seen before on mobile. And then I was watching it work, and we started getting multimodal research happening. So multimodally and plus mobile, we got 6 million completes on mobile at Toluna in the past 6 months. That is a tipping point, a sea change, but I don't think it's quite yet at a tipping point in terms of us selling projects that are totally mobile. I don't think that's happening yet in the mature market everywhere. So the prediction, 2014, that's when that line's going to get up. We're going to have more countries globally in the mature markets that are going to pass that 50% point. The United States is going to get up a little higher. And then in 2015, that'll be the transformation year for many of the emerging markets. This is just my prediction. So mobile research is a solution, but not a feature set. And we think of it, because it's a shiny new penny, and I'm checking my phone 150 times a day, we think of it as a shiny new penny in research. But I do believe that when we tailor it, and this is something that Andy was just talking about, and I thought was a phenomenal point, the methodological rigor that we need to bring to a mobile survey done on a smartphone device that allows us to predictably, time and time again, measure a variety of behaviors and get the right answers, and be able to predict, to repeat that survey and get the same answers. And then also the combining multiple data streams. We heard of that both from data augmentation, but also from chopping up surveys so that they're shorter on a mobile device, and then putting them back together. And not only surveys, but the augmentation would come from passive metering on the phone. We'll talk about that in a second. So I want to see in the United States what is happening. How does the smartphone impact the path to purchase? So a long time ago, it used to be, before mobile phones, which I looked at the data, 92 was when we started seeing 1 percentage points. So in 1992 is when, in the United States, 1%, every 1 out of 100 people were carrying a mobile phone, which is kind of a cool date to remember. At that time, A.G. Lafley, who is the CEO of Procter & Gamble, said that there were two moments of truth. When a person picked up off the shelf and looked at a product and tried to make that decision to buy, that moment of truth for General Mills. The second moment of truth is the first usage of that product, the satisfaction they get from using that product. And then a guy named Michael Robinson from Omnicom added a third moment of truth, and that was when the brand message reaches the viewer. And I think what we're doing now is we're really focusing on the smartphone, how it's impacting that first moment of truth. It's because that first moment of truth is no longer just a shelf in a store. It's an online shelf. And it's the impact of the person using their phone to do their work, to see what kind of price shopping they want to do, if there's a coupon they can find online, if somebody likes this product over another product. That getting into that moment of truth, if we can do that well as market researchers, that's where that will add a lot of value to our clients. So smartphone usage is really now that first shelf. It's the shelf. They've pulled themselves up to the shelf. They'll go to that first shelf, and they're doing it across these products. 61% use their mobile device to make a decision about a purchase. Doesn't have to be in store, but if the survey that we ran was looking at, and the question we asked is, did you use your mobile phone in the past 48 hours to make a product decision, to help you make a product decision? There's also some other data that's coming in on that first shelf, and that's a revolution in online discussion. So not only can a person go to Yelp or go to Google, but they can look on their Facebook, they can tweet it, they can get questions and answers that way, and so we also looked at that. So we divided down the interactions that lead to the moment of truth and looked at ways we could collect data that would map back to those moments of truth. So falls into the I am going to purchase, so they'll do a price check, that's coupon that I just talked about, sales location, they'll do a product or brand comparison, they'll go online. I know I do this all the time. I'm in Target and I go to the Amazon site and I look at the review for whatever appliance I'm needing, and I will trust that in order for me to make my choice. And I see from lots of recognition from folks in the audience that you guys do it too. And so understanding how that is impacting the purchase and what our clients can do to get into that moment is critical. Ask advice or browse a brand page, and they're doing it everywhere. They're not just doing it at the store at Target. They're doing it at home while they're visiting friends, in transit, hopefully not driving, but in the back seat or on the bus or in the train, or a restaurant or a bar, waiting in line. I would go one more, sorry. Also, the I am purchasing, that is when they're either online doing a purchase or in the brick and mortar store doing a purchase, or I have purchased. So they're heralding the purchase or the usage. Heralding is big. Some social media data I looked at about a year ago had people heralding that they were in line getting on a cruise. I'm getting on a cruise, going to, and a lot of that. So I think heralding is a really untapped area of looking at online data and how it is impacting purchase decision. Or the opposite of heralding, bad-mouthing. I think we've looked at that more. So each of those interactions that we just talked through leads to that moment of truth. I'm going to purchase. That one is the one we're focusing on, so that they're doing it on brand apps, review apps, and browsers. And the way to reach that is passive metering plus mobile surveying. And where their location is, that's geolocation. That's simple. So what did we find out? The smartphone does influence purchase behavior, that's 61%. And we see that of those who purchased, social media had only a 6% share. So the information they found on social media only impacted 6 out of 100 people. More was the review sites and doing a Google search. Once the consumer's in the store, it is unlikely, only 5% chance that they'll buy it online. I think that pull, and that's something that our clients can use, that pull to the shelf is pretty enticing. They're not going to purchase when they online. When I look at my Amazon review in Target, I'm not going to decide to buy the product that I see online. Probably, and this is an interesting research question, I wonder if it was cheaper, how much cheaper would it be to influence that decision? In defense of social media, we just talked about it, 6%. It's true. In a 48-hour window, consumers do not use that information to make that purchase. However, social media is a long-term strategy for our clients, and it's important for us to be able to hook into that social media. There was a 3-year tracker. It was really well done. It was done at the University of Texas, and they examined the impact of social media involvement on the frequency of store visits and the amount spent by customer. It was a really cool experiment. What they did is they found a franchise that didn't have a Facebook page, but was planning to do it. And they had an enormous amount of information, addresses, et cetera, on their consumer base. So from that consumer base, before the Facebook page went up, they recruited a control group they didn't know who was going to be in the control group, but they recruited enough people so they would have a control group and a non-control group. So then they put the Facebook page up, and then they followed this respondent over this 3 years and saw the interactions of their sample, their respondents, on that Facebook page. And then next, they looked at, sorry, I lost my train of thought because this guy in the back keeps holding up these signs. And then they looked at the amount of Facebook visits that they did, the amount of times they posted, and then any change in their purchase and consumption habits. And it was amazing. It showed that 5.2% visits had more often visits, and they were able to control because they had this control group that and they removed the bias because of the previous social media. And then they also showed that actually having those conversations about different products online impacted their purchase. So it didn't happen in the moment, but it did happen in the long range. So there's lots of pre-post behaviors with social media that we talked about earlier. The one I think is really key here is the reading the opinions about specific products, 34%. It's not happening in that short window, but there is that relationship going on. Just like the wine purchasers were going to the Facebook page, getting opinions about wine from that community and from that brand, and then taking that information and going into the store and purchasing that wine. At Toluna, we do this. We gather social media data. Well, we get our respondents we tell them what their research purpose is. We're very transparent about it. We ask the respondent if we could read their Facebook page, and we do. And they say yes, and then we do. And we pull out their data. Some of it is fixed or quantitative data immediately, and a lot of it is text, and so there's a lot of text analytics that need to go on. Besides the data that we get through the quantitative data, we get great qualitative data, similar to the qualitative data that we can get out of mobile research as well, and it can be paired up with mobile research. So here's postings by a woman who we did some work on it for an alcohol brand, and we were looking at if she was talking about that specific brand or associated drinks. And got this great qualitative data. I think this qualitative data is essential when we're trying to give a complex quantitative piece of information to our client. The qualitative data, the day-in-the-life narrative, is what they take away in their mind at the end, right? Our client remembers this and then thinks of the fact that's going to help them move forward on the decision. And then here she's talking about activity at a bar. Here she's drinking a glass of wine the next day. Over the past 2 days, I've heard this, and I'm very thankful about it because just because a respondent has that mobile phone, I'm all excited about mobile. I go to conferences and speak about it, and I see this presentations. So I fall into this group. It is a shiny new penny for me. But I think methodologically we have to be really careful. Just because that respondent has a mobile phone and we've been able to recruit them to either do a survey or passive metering or whatever interesting technique that we want to do, and we saw the value of that data, so we know it's important. It doesn't mean, though, that that is the right respondent for the survey. I was walking past a bank a few months ago, and I popped up a survey. Come into our bank and take a survey. I joined a bunch of panels to do competitive intelligence on everybody's product, and so I walked into the bank. It wasn't my bank, but I answered the survey anyway. And so I think, which is evil, I know, but I wanted to see what I wanted to see what would happen and how it would interact if I would get screened out. I answered truthfully, but there was no screener. I finished the survey. So I just think that they got my complete, so one in the complete and not one in the terminate, right? And the faster we finish jobs, the more happy our clients are. But not if I don't shop at that bank, not if my money's not in that bank. Because I think we get weird things, like a nice old lady getting an invite to go into a cigar store. Things like that, incongruities. So we just have to be careful in terms of our data. And one of the ways that we can do that is what Andy was talking about, which was reduce the sample size. We don't need 1,000. We can go with 200 or 100 because the data is richer. Questions?
Due to the time, we'll just take 2 questions if there are any.
Yeah, I was wondering if you mentioned that you got permissions to get Facebook data. Did you get that by manually coding, or did you tie into it through Facebook's API with the mobile app or anything?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Something really big is happening to me today on Facebook, I just have to tell you, which is it's my birthday. So, and so I'm getting and my phone is pinging every few minutes, like happy birthday, happy birthday. So, so yes, it's a very good question. I just wanted to bring that up. So the answer is we wrote an application. Toluna wrote an application. I took the slide out. I had a slide in there that actually shows it, so I've got it on my machine. Toluna wrote an application that actually sits at Facebook. And when we screen our respondent and we're going to ask them those answers, it invokes that application. The survey, we use Confirm it, our other data collection engines at Toluna. We have many engines. It invokes that application that's sitting at Facebook, and then it comes up, and then the respondent walks through a wizard as part of that application that's made with the Facebook API, if that makes sense. I'll show it to you if you have any questions.
Time for one more.
I was just curious if you went into any depth with the stores. So I was thinking, I wonder, when you were looking at whether or not people were price checking, so I was thinking there's potentially a double whammy if people don't trust a store, so they're not sure about the products in there, and so they go online to check. And then they're obviously seeing prices on Amazon as well. So I didn't know if you looked at if there were any people, any store goers that are more or less likely to price check and or check ratings.
There definitely were people who used, if I got the question correctly, there definitely were people who used their smartphone in the store to do a price check, and that makes me think of something. What's really essential is that the mobile app that you're using should be a native mobile app, because if it's really just an app that's calling to a server, it should really work disconnected for your data collection. You guys know it from this room, right? And this is just like a big box store. So if you're going to watch what somebody is doing and being able to push surveys to them, but also do some validation, in your app, you have to make sure that app is able to work without communication to a server, because that won't work, and you won't be able to collect that data when they're actually doing that price check. It happens in malls, big box stores, the majority of places we shop in America today. But the question is that did we drill into, did they make that choice? We did, and they got the price, and maybe it allowed them to make a choice on the shelf, but it only impacted about 5%.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.